What's up, Game Devs? T-Chan here, and welcome to episode 31 of Game Dev Loadout, where I chat with today's most experienced game developers 7 days a week. We will learn about their background, the challenges they faced, and the tools they use to reach success. And today's featured guest is Andy Ashcraft. Ash, it is go time. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Yes, he has been in the game industry for nearly 20 years, working at his company called Gaintsdance Game Design. His goal is to help you make better games based on your ideas and intellectual properties. So go ahead, Ash, give us a bit about your personal life and how you got started in the game industry.
I got started in 1994, working on with a small developer here in Los Angeles. I live in Los Angeles. That was making games for the 3DO platform. So it was a Korean handheld game platform back in the day. And yeah, I got my break. I kind of got lucky. I was writing. I'm a tabletop gamer as well. I like board games and card games and role playing games. And I was also writing a bunch of live action role playing games, LARPs, because I'm a giant nerd. And I was running one of these giant LARPs, and one of the people who was in my LARP was working as a temp, as a receptionist at this game company. And it turns out they were looking for a game designer, and she was talking about my game, and they're like, "Well, bring him in." And so that's how I got my lucky break.
Oh, nice. What do you consider your main area of expertise?
Right. So my main area of expertise is going to be about story and narrative and the sort of reasons that people want to keep playing. So I'm not a programmer. If I were, I'd be making a lot more money than I am. But so I have to focus on really the fun of it and how games communicate to the player what they are good at.
And if people had to teach themselves your expertise, what would you suggest they use?
Oh, well, they should just make games. They should make games in every possible way that they can. They should make card games. They should make board games. They should run D&D games. They should learn Unity and make mobile games and make PC games. Put them up on Steam. All of that is basically the only way that you can really get really good at making games is by making games.
Yeah.
And it's easier now than ever to make games.
Because everything's online and most of it is free now. Just got to go out there and do it.
That's right. And there's tons and tons of YouTube videos to help you out because people have been putting up a lot of great information about how to do things. Whether it's, how to make art, how to get your stuff on the App Store, how to program a certain thing. You'll find all that information, and it's great. People are so helpful. It's one of the greatest things about this industry is how helpful everybody is.
I kind of want to go back to your expertise. Can you expand about the story and narrative? Like, how does someone start from the beginning to end to get into that position?
That's a good question in terms of what the position is and what the skill is that I'm talking about. This sort of the idea that at any given time, players need to know why they're doing things, right? So let's say you're making a Mario style run and jump game, right? And the player needs to know at any given point, why is he trying to make this jump? Why is it important that this jump be made, right? And so in some cases that can be, well, because there's a coin on the other side and I can see it and I want to get it, and that's why I'm making this jump. But in other cases it's sort of longer reasons, right? There's like, oh, I want to complete this level. Oh, I want to get all 100 coins. Oh, I want to make sure that I get through the game and rescue Princess Peach. So all of these things are sort of like the answer, the why. Why is the player doing anything? Why is the player doing the thing that you want him to do in your game?
Yeah, give them a reason. Yeah, like you say, like the Mario, collect 100 coins, you get a 1-up, and
that's right.
Extend your life so you can play longer. On that subject, what do you think are common mistakes that people make, even at a pro level?
Yeah, well, I see it all the time, honestly. And I'm sure you do too, where you play a game and you don't really know why you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Why is it I'm doing this? Why am I doing this thing? What's this all about? Why do they want me to do this? And you see it all the time, and I think it's probably the reason why most games fail. Now, keep in mind that there's and I don't want to discourage you from doing your thing, but keep in mind that there's like 4,000 new games on the App Store every year. That's like 10 a day. And for people to find the ones that are really good, it's quite hard to do. And when they do find them, the ones they do find that are great, and the ones that stick with them, and the ones that they want to play and they tell their friends about, and they tell their friends to tell their friends, are the games where they really understand why they're doing what they're doing and why it's important to keep playing.
What are your key principles for better game development?
Communication. It's all about communication. So if the players don't know what they're supposed to do, then they will have a hard time doing it. Also, because if you're working with a team, you have to communicate to the other people why it's important that you have design ideas, you have this idea about why things should be the way they are in your game. That has to be communicated to the other people on your team as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the other principle I think is super important is iteration. That is, do things over and over and over again. Don't be afraid to throw out old work because you're going to do it again.
What's a good way to communicate to the players on how to do a specific task? Like, what's the best way to approach that? So, you have to collect 100 coins. I guess, how would you tell the player how to do that and you get a 1-up at the end? Or it just happens naturally when they collect the 100 coins? Like, what's the best way to approach that kind of concept?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. Typically, so the way Valve does it, so you played Half-Life 2, they do a really excellent job with this. And what they do is every time that they give you some new ability, let's say they give you a new gun or they give you a new thing, the first thing they do is they show you somebody else using it. So you'll see off in the distance, maybe you'll see somebody use a grenade launcher. You're like, oh, that's badass. I want to do that. And then you get the grenade launcher, and then they sort of teach you how to use it, right? And then they give you a playground, like this sort of open area where you can use the grenade. There's lots of ammo around. You can use the grenade launcher as much as you want, and you can really sort of play with it and sort of really get an idea of what it is and how it can work. And then they finally test you. Like, do you know how to use the grenade launcher well enough to continue on with the game? And they'll give you some sort of a mini boss of some sort that you have to use the grenade launcher against, just to test you to make sure that you know how to do it. And then once you've done that, then you're sort of free to go back out into the rest of the game. You're sort of out of this training. And it doesn't feel like training when it happens. It feels completely organic.
And that's probably the best way, right? For it to feel organic, feel natural.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best way. And they're very good at it. So I recommend people looking at Half-Life 2 is the one that really does this the best, where you can play through this game and you can just sort of keep an eye out for every time they teach you how to use a new thing. Just pay attention to how they teach you. Yeah,
I believe Half-Life 2 is still considered one of the best games of all time.
Absolutely, and this is one of the reasons why that's true.
Definitely. Now, creating a game can be very long and difficult, and so I'm pretty sure you had some bad moments. Give us a personal experience of your most difficult moment. It could be like an obstacle or emotion you have to overcome. Be detailed and give us that story.
Sure. So this is a game development horror story, right? Right. This is how bad things can get in the game development world. And again, I don't want to discourage anybody who's listening, because I have a great time in this industry and I'm really happy to be a part of it and thankful to be a part of this industry. But sure, it can be tough. All right. So I was working on, this was tough. I was working on Warhawk, PS3 launch game. Used the motion controller. It was basically you're flying on you have a guy you can get into different kinds of vehicles, and you can fly around, drive around the environment, and there's enemies to kill and shoot at. And it's a big war scenario, right? It has this cool sort of 1940s science fiction vibe. So this game, Warhawk, I was working on that for a couple of years, and my task was to create the single-player missions for a single-player. It was going to be multiplayer and it was going to be single-player. So there's going to be a single-player story mode, and I was in charge of doing the missions. There was a story already written, and we just had to sort of slot in missions to fill out the story. So there's lots of things you could do. And I spent a good deal of time working out what these missions were, how players would play through them, what they would learn in each one so that they could go and play the next one. So, trying to look at games like Half-Life 2 for teaching players how to do new things. And the hard part about this story was that game didn't ship with a single player game mode in it. They cut it. The engineers never had time to put it in.
So all your work
gone.
Oh man.
And that happens a lot.
Oh, what do you want to make sure game devs take away from that? 'Cause that's just terrible. That you put all that work into it, and then the players never get to see it. Oh,
never got a chance to see it at all. Yeah, and we'd already spent the money on the cinematics too. So there was tons of money and effort spent on this that nobody ever saw. But the takeaway, I think, is just this, that you got to move on. A lot of games start much bigger than they end. You always have people going into games have these great ideas about what they want to get done, and reality sets in, and it turns out computer programming is hard, and doing this artwork takes time, and all of these things step in, and you end up cutting down the game, and you end up leaving a lot of it basically on the cutting room floor. And you just have to go, all right, well, that's the way that is. It's heartbreaking, but that's just the way that is.
Yes, game devs, do not let that discourage you. It's just part, I guess, of company or business.
Yeah.
When they have to ship a game, they just have to cut stuff out that won't be able to make it in time. So
that's right. And in some cases, the reason they're cutting it isn't even like a production budget. Sometimes the ideas just don't work, right? Yeah. Or sometimes they don't work. They might be great ideas on their own, but because the game is going in a different direction, that idea doesn't fit with the game anymore. And you're like, oh, but it's such a cool idea. And it's like, yeah, but it's got to go.
I guess the good thing is that if it doesn't go in that game, you can use that idea for another game or for a future project.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And that's a great attitude to go in with that.
Yeah, there you go. Make it positive.
Yeah, anything that you learn, and of course you're learning all the time, right? You're learning how to do this. You're learning because you're never just doing what you already know how to do. You're always pushing at the edges of what you know how to do. And so every time that you do a task like that, you're just going to be better at it the next time you do it.
Definitely. Now let's transition. What do you consider the best investment you've ever made? And it could be investment of money, time, or energy. And how did you decide to make that investment?
My wife raised her hand across the room. Yes, my wife is my greatest investment. She's paying off every day. But you probably mean more in terms of my professional life, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
because my wife is my greatest investment as well.
Good, as it should be.
Yeah.
So professionally, probably the greatest investment. Yeah, no, I think it's got to be just the time. So when you're in game development, it's really easy to get super focused, right? Where you're just like eating and breathing and sleeping the same game all the time. And the best investment you can make for yourself in those times is to step away and do something different for a little bit every day. And it'll feel hard because there's so much to do on the game. But if you go out and you do some gardening, or you go for a run, or you go to the gym, or you take time out to play with your kid, or any of those things, take time out to hang out with your parents or your friends, all of those things will come back to you in 10 times more valuable.
Yeah, you just need that break every now and then.
You do.
For that fresh air.
That's right, because you can, like, if I had not taken time out to basically move forward in other things in my life during that period of time I was working on Warhawk, and then all of that Warhawk stuff was cut, that would have been all of my life for 2 years.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, because I had other things going on. And Miyamoto, when he was before he made the first Pikmin, this is sort of famous story about him. He was like taking some time off and working in his garden when the idea for Pikmin came. So you can get like these moments where you sort of open yourself up to other experiences besides the thing that you're specifically working on. Those are the things that will come back to you and enrich your ideas and enrich your mind moving forward.
Definitely. Yeah, you get a new idea just by walking outside or exploring the world. You just never know.
That's exactly right.
Now, what is the one thing you are most excited about today?
Today, what am I excited about? Well, it's sweltering hot in my house, and I'm excited that air conditioning repair people are coming tomorrow. So that's what's happening right now. But but you probably mean professionally as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm currently working on a tabletop game that I'm very excited about. That I can talk about a little bit. It's a time travel empire building game. So I don't know if you play a lot of tabletop games, but if you play like Kingdom Builder, so this game, this time travel game I'm working on called Time Empire is each of you. There's up to 5 players. Each of you have an empire that you're building, and as you travel through time, you can pick up resource cards that basically strengthen your empire, so you can become stronger in technology, or you can be stronger military, or you can have a greater population, that sort of thing, right? And then at some point you develop your time machine. And when you do that, you can go back to earlier turns and try to strengthen your position in the earlier turns as well. And then when that happens, they have events that sort of cascade forward down the timeline and affect further time ages down the timeline. So the board is basically a timeline on the middle of the table.
Cool.
And yeah, so I'm super excited about that. That's super cool.
All the best on that. I hope I can see it in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And now we have reached crunch time. So don't forget Game Dev. You can check out Game Dev Loadout for all the show notes and links. You can also subscribe to my email list to get tips and updates. And we have reached crunch time, the phase where game does dread, but we are here to overcome it. Basically, Andy, I will ask you quick questions and you'll be giving us a ton of valuable information in return. Are you ready to crush it and release this show?
I am ready.
Awesome. What was holding you back from becoming a game developer?
Honestly, the only thing that was holding me back was not really knowing what I wanted to do. And it occurred to me when I was in college. I went to college. I wanted to be a comic book artist. And I realized in college that the people who are really good artists draw all the time. They just draw constantly. They draw day and night. They're drawing on the back of a napkin. They're drawing right now.
Yeah.
And I realized at some point that wasn't me. I wasn't drawing all the time. I was spending all my time playing games.
Yeah.
And it took me like 2 or 3 years after that to go, oh, games.
What's a personal habit that contributes to your success?
I exercise. I go for runs every other day. I run 2 or 3 miles basically every other day. I think that's a huge help to my success. And I also cultivate friendships. And I think this is super important too. Like the people that you end up liking, the people that you work with, and you're like, these people are great. You got to make an extra effort to make sure that they're not just work friends, so you can make them into real friends.
Cultivating friendship is just great in the long term, because that's how you network. That's how you learn about new ideas, share ideas, better yourself. And so, yeah, cultivating friendship is definitely a must.
That's right. And hang out with people who are better than you at other things.
Oh, yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, this is a good story. I was working for a company called Seventh Level, and we were working on a role-playing game called Return to Krondor. And they had hired me this was early on in my career, and they hired me as sort of an assistant producer to the producer guy. This was during the CD-ROM boom, right? So everybody was spending a lot of money on CD-ROMs, all this technology, all this money was being spent in technology for CD-ROM technology. And my company was growing really fast. And the producer on my project got promoted into a vice president position. And then I got promoted into being the producer on the game. I was too young. I didn't know what I was doing as a producer on the game. But I did know, because I was in the assistant producer, I knew what our budget was and I knew what our schedule was. And so when they promoted me, they also gave me this huge raise, right? I think I was working for like $25,000 a year. And then they moved and they raised me up to $50,000 a year.
Ooh, nice.
Right. It's like doubled my salary, right? And then, so I said, well, this is great and all, but I know what the budget is, and you guys can't afford this. You can't afford to pay me this. And the producer, now vice president, he marched me outside of the building. He was so mad at me. he marched me outside of the building and he said, I don't ever want to hear you ever say that again, because we have other producers in there and they have kids and they have wives and they have houses and they have mortgages. If you say that you can do the work for less, then we have to pay everybody else less. So you take the money and you shut up.
Wow.
And that's the greatest advice I've ever gotten.
Wow. That's a great boss right there.
Yeah, he was a good boss.
How has a failure set you up for later success?
Another good question. Let me think about that. Well, okay. I was working for THQ. This was 2006, 2007, 2008, about that time. I was working for THQ. THQ was a big publisher. And I was working with external developers. I was working with a Wii game called World of Zoo. I was working with Fifth Cell and made their game Lock's Quest. And then THQ went out of business because the economy collapsed in 2007. The mortgage crisis happened, and THQ was exactly the wrong size company to survive the financial meltdown that came after that. So they went out of business. And I started because of that, I started my freelance career then. So I've been freelance since then, and I've been happier freelance than I've ever been working for a big company.
I heard that just that independence feels great because you have that flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. And I also teach. I teach at New York Film Academy. So I teach game design, and then I have my games that I'm working on the side, and then I work for people freelance, and it's great. I'm having a great time. I'm a lot less stressed than I used to be. I get to work on all kinds of different kinds of games, where before that I'd have one or two games that I'd be working on, but now I can work on 6 or 7 different games in the course of a year.
Oh, wow. Go ahead and share an internet resource that game devs could use.
Oh, well, YouTube is key, right? YouTube is the single best internet resource for basically learning anything. So yeah, anything you need to learn Unity, go on YouTube. There's tutorials, people have created things. Steam is probably the second best, just because you can go on and find, if you filter the games by the kinds of games you need to do research on. I highly recommend doing research on the games you're working on. Find all the games that are even remotely similar to it, similar in theme, similar in mechanic, and play all those games so you understand them, understand what makes them good, understand what makes them better, understand what you can do to make yours better than theirs.
Now, this next question is a bit of a doozy, so take your time if you need to. Imagine you woke up the next morning in a brand new world and you knew no one. You still have all the experience and knowledge you currently have today. Your food and shelter is taken care of and you have a laptop. What would you do step by step on the path to become a great game developer?
Like it's basically this kind of world. It's not like some sort of weird like zombie only world or something like that, right?
No.
Okay. Then I would start a meetup for game developers, and I would meet the other day. I would meet other game developers. I'd do a game jam. I would run a D&D game. And I'd start a meetup and get 6 people over to play a D&D game. I try to find the other game developers, and I try to find out what's going on with them and where they are in their world.
Love it. Go ahead and give a parting piece of guidance and how we can connect with you, Andy.
Oh, sure. So my company is Gaintsdance Games, which you can reach at www.gaintsdancegames.com, where you will find my email address and my phone number. Feel free to call. If anybody out there that needs assistance, go ahead and give me a ring. I'm happy to chat with anybody about this sort of stuff. I may not have a whole lot of time, but I'm always happy to hear from you.
Ooh, and give us a parting piece of guidance.
Sure. Make more games.
Make more games. Andy, it's been a pleasure. And game devs, take him up on that offer. Go to his website, call him up, email him. He will help you out. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, Andy, with us. And for that, we are truly grateful. I will post everything up on my website, so don't forget game devs to check that out. We look forward to your future work, Andy. And until then, we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Mr. Chan.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Game Devs, for listening, and remember that knowledge is only potential power, execution is the game. I'm so excited to announce that I am doing a giveaway sponsored by Game Dev Underground, a marketing and connection platform for indie developers that helps you build, finish, and launch better games. The winner gets a 1-hour consultation with the founder, Tim Ruswick, which he was a guest on episode 4. This is over $1,000 in value, and it can be yours. All you have to do is rate and review the podcast. That's it. Check out my show notes for more details, and until then, keep on making games, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye.